Week 13 daily fantasy sports. We're going to recap the last week and go into what we're going to talk about this week. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. I am wearing my John Greenyard jersey. Yes, he's not a Texan anymore, but I will be at the Colts-Texans game this Sunday. But let's talk some daily fantasy. This is all on DraftKings, the $1 Million Maker lineup. Basically, let's recap last week because we did have a solid kind of team as far as the couple duds that we had, about 100 points off from the first place team. The team on the right obviously got first place in the $20 entry. That was the $1 Million Maker, as I like to call it. And again, 168 points. It really wasn't that bad of a performance from this team. We didn't have the right quarterback. Quarterback was Jameis Winston to Wan'Dale Robinson. Amon-Ra St. Brown had him in there. The running back he needed, it was Jahmyr Gibbs. 58 points, 219 yards on the ground, 3 total touchdowns. I just couldn't fit him in there. I went cheap running back. It definitely was a little bit of a gut punch, especially when you have guys like T. Higgins, who that was the only one that was really bad. I had Amon-Ra. Hunter Henry was the tight end. A.J. Brown put up 28. Just missed on a couple guys. Saints defense got the job done. Browns ended up with 16, but you had Amon-Ra. Michael Wilson was a good play, but he was kind of the chalk. So just looking at last week, again, a lot of solid points. Even Charbonnet had that touchdown, but again, you needed Gibbs. Winston was the main guy. If I had Gibbs, I probably would have got into the money, no doubt. But honestly, not too shabby of a week. 168 points, we still don't get into the money. That just shows you how crazy of a week that it was with everything that went on. So now, let's get into the lineup. I have a lineup on the right here. I'll kind of just run through. This was kind of the first blind, naked eye test as to, hey, these are the guys that I like. These are the guys that I'm thinking are going to do well for their first week. Okay, I just kind of reset the layout. You have all the players right here, the team on the right. I will tell you the salaries that are missing. So the lineup that I constructed just from, again, the naked eye. Justin Herbert playing the Raiders, $6,500 salary. Jalen Warren, $6,300 salary against Buffalo and very not good run defense. Ashton Jeanty against the Chargers, $6,400. Chimere Dike, interesting matchup against the Jaguars. Very bad secondary. They give up a lot of points. Very cheap option at $4,400. Keenan Allen, $5,000. I feel like, again, you got to stack somebody with Herbert. Ricky Pearsall, interesting matchup, but the Browns play a lot of man-to-man. I like Pearsall this week. Interesting matchup, $5,200. Schultz, $3,800, and Achane, who can very well run wild against the Saints at $8,300. Chargers defense in the bottom because it was the most expensive defense with $100 remaining salary left over. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit this clear button right here. And we're going to build a lineup together. What is the best lineup that's going to look good? Well, last week kind of talked about 3 different quarterbacks. Joe Flacco definitely didn't show up. But looking at this week, Allen has a favorable matchup against Pittsburgh. Again, I just don't know how to be able to just look at this correctly because there's so many quarterbacks. But honestly, if I'm just looking at Stafford against the Panthers, Panthers have a good defense. I like Herbert, like I mentioned. Jones is playing on a fractured fibula. Purdy did not look good against the Bucks or against Panthers. He's not going to look good against the Browns. Baker Mayfield, questionable. Brissett has a good matchup against Tampa Bay. Maybe I was a week early on Brissett. Maybe it's a Brissett to McBride. You have Marvin Harrison coming back, so likely can't use the Michael Wilson stack. Trevor Lawrence is a decent matchup against Tennessee. Again, nothing's really catching my eye. I don't mind a Tua Tagovailoa. What catches my eye? This guy right here, Cam Ward. He's been playing really sneaky football the past few weeks. $4,600 in the salary. Really cheap option at quarterback. Yes, I know it's risky, but we are going to say that's a division game. That's a competitive game. Cam Ward's thrown for 250 plus. Last week he had 22 fantasy points with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown. Honestly, I really like this matchup for the Titans, and I know it sounds really dumb to put 2 guys together for DFS, but I would put this in the Million Maker. It's really just a matter of personable feeling, and if you feel better about, maybe a Herbert, maybe a Brissett, that's totally fine. I don't know. I feel like Ward is going to have a solid job. I don't even mind CJ Stroud against Indy coming out making a statement. But again, there's not many quarterbacks that I am very high on this week. You could go with, the contrarian last week was Jameis Winston. Maybe it's the Vikings' new quarterback, if I can remember his name. Here he is, Max Berosmer. Again, it's his first start, but, anything can happen if you want to go that contrarian route. Shedeur Sanders gets a tough San Fran defense. Honestly, I think as for a defense, you can easily take the Niners, considering they're probably not the most expensive, but, okay, they're right here. Probably 5th ranked defense, 3,600. I think Shedeur's going to have a bad day. Honestly, it's not really his fault, but they run the ball a lot, and they didn't really give him a lot of opportunities to throw. They let him throw 20 times, which isn't good, isn't bad, but it's like when you're running the ball on 3rd and 9, it's like, come on, man, give the guy a chance. I know you don't want to throw a turnover, but it's like, this is a tough game for the Browns to be able to play. Yes, their defense will probably keep them in it, but as for a good matchup in the running back space, McCaffrey's going to get shut down by the Browns. I mean, he might have a couple catches. He's always a good safe 20. Houston's going to shut down Jonathan Taylor. The Jets, believe it or not, they actually have a decent front, and they're going to shut down Bijan. I feel like that's the one thing the Jets are going to be like, all right, we have to stop the run, and they're going to stop the run. I can, for some reason, see James Cook being a viable option. I'm going to go ahead and put Achane in the lineup because I didn't put Gibbs in there last week. Achane, 8,300 in the salary. It's definitely an interesting thing here. For running backs, it really is slim this week. Bucky Irving, first week back off injury. He's probably not going to be, 80, 90% snaps. I would expect a little bit of Rachaad White. Cardinals aren't the best run defense, so that's something to keep an eye out for. The other two guys that I'm pretty big on, Travis Etienne and Jalen Warren. Warren I mentioned just because I kind of had him in the lineup last week. He was first week back off injury. They didn't really play him 100%. Gainwell's kind of getting the receiving work. So if my calculations are correct, and the Bills are going to be terrible at run defense, something the Pittsburgh Steelers like to keep on the ground. They like to run it. I think Warren's going to be a really good, cheap option for you to be able to plug in and play. Now, there's a lot of different names you could go with. ETN has a good matchup against the Titans, but I think that's going to be really competitive. Again, just looking at the running backs, nothing sticks out to me. Breece Hall has a good, favorable matchup. The Jets like to run it 100 times a game, so that could be something. Hampton off an injury. Marks gets a good Colts defense. Kamani Vidal, again, he's going to be the backup today if Hampton gets promoted off the IR. Benson likely to be back this week. He gets a Tampa defense giving up the 22nd points per game. So realistically, nothing sticks out to me on paper. I think Warren has the best matchup for and a recipe for success if we're looking at the running back category. But realistically, nothing really says, oh, this guy's a must play. I like a couple matchups for Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, maybe even an Ashton Genty in a receiving role down against the Chargers. But I think that's really all you can put in there. And I know it looks really weird right now for the lineup, but now let's go on to receivers. Receivers is interesting. Jackson Smith and Jigba, really big week last week. I could see Puka Nacua having a good week. I believe Horn left the game last week. That's kind of their top corner, so it'd be interesting to see how the Panthers kind of recover there. I think they're going to be a really good run defense, so Nacua is definitely a guy to keep an eye on, but I have a little bit of bias because he's on my fantasy team, so why would I want to put him in the $1 Million Make? It's just a really weird week. Devontae Adams could easily be the guy. Justin Jefferson hasn't had a good game. Maybe Max Brosmer finds him. Just, again, nothing sticks out to me here. Waddle, this is another stack. As far as the 2-3 stacks that you can probably go with, I like the Ward to Dike. I love the Tua to Waddle as well if you want to be able to do something like that. Maybe even a Stroud to Nico. But again, there's not many big stacks that I love outside of those 3-4, 4 meaning Herbert and McConkey. But yeah, wide receivers, again, I'm struggling to try and find somebody. Like, Pearsall kind of sticks out to me, Keenan Allen, but again, there's nothing really spectacular in my opinion. As for the other two receivers, I guess, because DK's in there, Jalen Waddle is Tua's top target. He's going to go to him. And then I went with Nico Collins. Yes, you could just yell at me now. The Texans jersey, it is a biased pick. However, the Colts have not been good in the secondary. The Texans, I just feel like Nico is due for a game. You have to pepper him with targets. Stroud loves to go to his top target. But again, he also spreads the ball around. That's kind of why I had Schultz in the first eye kind of market. But again, other names, Brian Thomas, good matchup against Tennessee. McConkey, I did mention Keenan Allen is a good name. We still have to fill out our flex, so we'll probably put in another receiver. Pittman's got a tough matchup. Shakir, maybe against Pittsburgh. I don't like it. But yeah, you just scroll down here. You're getting to the bottom of the barrel in these kinds of receivers that I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I want to take a risk on any of these guys. Even John Mechie, a tough matchup. Atlanta, pretty good there. Yeah, but I'm not liking a lot of the receivers. Let's move on to tight end. I don't mind a triple stack. If you're going to do a Herbert to Gadsden, I really don't mind that. But it's just, again, tight end is so unpredictable. Sometimes you have a week, a Hunter Henry week where he has 30, then you play him and he has nothing. So it's really picking your poison with, okay, do you want to have an expensive tight end like McBride, who you know is going to get a lot of work? That's who I had last week. He had like 15, didn't do anything miraculous, so that kind of hurts a little bit. You got Kate Otten in a questionable quarterback room. If Baker's going to play, most likely, maybe it's up in the air. Brenton Strange is kind of the top target on Jacksonville. I don't mind that at all, but Tennessee does pretty well guarding the tight end. Honestly, I would say Strange is a good cheap option. He only played 30% of snaps in his first week off injury. Trevor Lawrence gave him 90 yards receiving. You do have Brian Thomas coming back this week, Parker Washington. It is a crowded receiving room. However, Strange has been the main target, so I don't mind a Gadsden or a Strange. I'm going to go with Brenton Strange. I have a weird feeling he catches a touchdown, and I like that matchup. So now you got 5,600 left, and it's, again, who do you want in this lineup? I don't even hate the Trevor Lawrence. There's just so many different possibilities with the million that it's like, okay, what do we want to do in making the best kind of thing possible here? So looking at flex, I'm not seeing any names that I love, but I did mention I love Keenan Allen, and I think Keenan is the best, safest play in terms of he is a guy over the middle that Herbert is going to like to target. And again, if you wanted to change out Ward, I'll go ahead and move it over on the screen. But looking at what we're trying to see here, let me just fix this for you guys. Hold up. So looking at, come on. OBS want to work properly? Hold the phone. Anyway, here is the lineup. It's a very interesting one. So, Cam Ward, you can easily switch out a Justin Herbert. I don't mind doing. Here we go. Let's go. Maybe a Herbert. It's probably gonna be too expensive, which is why I love. This is why I love the Ward connection, because you don't have to pay your price for a quarterback, and most likely Ward is going to be the guy. It's going to be hard to fit a Brissett to McBride if Achane is the guy this week. So this is kind of the lineup I'm rocking. You have a remaining 600. Maybe you can up your defense, arguably, back up to maybe the Chargers. This is just really questionable. So do we want to up Jalen Warren maybe? We want to go with a cheaper defense. This is kind of where do you calculate your lineup to where you'd be like, okay, maybe it'd go James Cook, a Buck Irving. I just don't like any of the matchups, to be quite honest. Even Kyron Williams against the Panthers, he is due for a crazy game. I wouldn't even hate maybe a Genty, but like I said, I like Warren. Achane is up in the air. It's such a weird suspect week for running backs that I don't know if I trust any of it. Maybe we up the tight end and it's Kittle. I'm just not trusting Kittle against the Browns. It's all a guessing game at the end of the day. I told you guys that I'm confident in. For some really odd reason, and I know gut feeling doesn't really talk for stats, but realistically, we're looking at the Jaguars as one of the worst pass defense in the NFL. But I feel really good about Cam Ward, Devon Achane, Jalen Warren. Great matchup against Buffalo. Chimere, Dike. I really think Warren's going to do well. DK is going to be nice. Waddle, Nico. And then the tight end that fits, it's either Gadsden or Strange. And I like Strange. I don't know why. If we're obviously going to up the Titans defense to the Chargers, just because Chargers is easier, it's safer, it's going to do well no matter what. So here's the lineup for week number 13 of the NFL season. Comment down below your thoughts on who you like for prices. Like I said, Chimere DK is a very good cheap option that you can get. As far as the cheapness goes, when you have a quarterback and a wide receiver combining for 8,000 salary, that's pretty nice. If I can count correctly, it's actually 9. So, but anyway, that'll be it. I'm gonna be enough rambling for me. Try and keep it shorter. Try and keep it more concise. Try and keep it simple. Yes, I know my brain was a little all over the place. Try and keep these more organized. But thank you everyone so much for watching. This has been the Big Z Breakdown. Hit that sub button if you're new. Mike Zanetti, and we'll see you in the next video. Good luck to everyone in the $1 Million Maker.